And this is what Brett Weinstein says. And this is by Chris Martinson, who said, it's just a complete coincidence that the DOJ has completely withheld all of the Epstein documents immediately before, during, and after 9/11, right? Now, obviously, I talked about this the other day, so you might be getting deja vu. But I want to point out why this is interesting. Now, the reason why this is particularly interesting to Epstein is, remember where Epstein is. He has a New York apartment, okay? He's associated with New York. This is where the buildings go down. He's directly tied to the financial sector, directly, heavily involved in the financial sector. And what did you see on 9/11? You see massive amounts of insider trading, okay? This is the exact area which Epstein operates in, clandestine movements of money, stocks, all these kinds of things. His next door neighbor, Lutnick, is heavily involved in the financial sector. Everyone around him, of course, who knew Epstein, said he didn't, and then he said he visited the island with his family, he said. Whatever. The point is this environment there is completely a kind of environment you would expect them to be talking about 9/11 in. This massive events happened. What are they saying about it in their emails? What are they saying about it, right? Massive events happened. What are they saying about it? Are they talking about money being moved around? Right? Lutnick didn't turn up for work, right? Him and his wife, right? He had a flaw there. He never turned up on that day. That's quite interesting, isn't it? In fact, you had Trump, etc., talking about how he didn't turn up and he was very lucky, or whatever the case is. Now remember Condoleezza Rice and all these kinds of things, foreknowledge, okay? The mayor there, Mayor of San Francisco, Willie Brown, 9/11 widows testifying before Congress stated that the mayor, Willie Brown, was warned not to fly on 9/11, and that Pentagon officials also stopped flying on that day. Brown himself confirmed he received a phone call the night of September the 10th from what he described as his airport security contact, advising him to be cautious of air travel. Condoleezza Rice's prior knowledge. The question was raised, if Rice considered July the 10th CIA briefing to contain a nothing burger, why did she call Mayor Willie Brown of San Francisco on September the 10th and warned him not to fly on September the 11th? So I don't have to go into prior knowledge of 9/11. Everyone that watches my channel is pretty down the rabbit hole on 9/11 probably. But the point I'm making is whether those are the testimonies that exist. If you take those testimonies and apply those to foreknowledge that large groups of people probably had foreknowledge and were discussing and using open phone lines in order to talk to people, then it is a pretty good possibility that this particular sector of individuals that are all tightly knit at the heights of power, Epstein, etc., so on and so forth, that they might be talking in their emails and documents as well about it. This is a significant event. In fact, you see some information there where Ghislaine Maxwell says, so who's the real pilot? That's what she says in one email. We do not know the context of that. So who's the real pilot on 9/11, she says. Okay, so you have a massive gap in files right there. And I just wanted to emphasize that there's a reason why. I mean, he's directly connected to the financial markets, and there was a lot of insider trading. He's directly connected to apparently the intelligence communities, of which he might have emails back and forward. I don't know why anybody would actually email each other back and forward via normal emails in those particular circumstances, but I assume they would just use code words, right? Okay, so Brett Weinstein says, what we are witnessing is the wearing off of the blue pill. The matrix is becoming visible. It will soon become common knowledge. The default assumption. Unfortunately, that alone does not destroy its control. We will have to do that. That's what he's saying. And it doesn't, right? These kinds of things, just what they do is you move into this arena of what they call hypernormalization, which is from that Richard Curtis, is a reference to Richard Curtis documentary, where everyone just loses hope of being able to change anything. And you don't dream about anything anymore. You just live day to day, which you can already feel a lot of people have moved into that. And then you don't care, and then corruption just becomes rife. And the only way that corruption's moved in that environment is you get like some type of person that, well, basically like you need a complete collapse like the Soviet Union, right? It needs to cut, it just needs to fall down and fall apart. And then you pray that whatever's built up in the rubble is better than it was before. Largely, that would mean it was just a bunch of oligarchs. But, I mean, that could be better than before, right? If they actually believe in making their country better at some level. Maybe they don't, but it's got to be better than being run by a bunch of people that the researchers community, I'm not completely, I don't know what jerky means, but according to the research community, they're eating people. They believe that. I'm not saying I believe that things have been laid, certain traps and things like that. I don't know if it's jerky. I don't know what it is. It could be like methamphetamine. It could be code name for some drug. Remember, this particular place is heavily hooked into the sex trade industry, sex in general, probably orgies, etc. And you can see what's inside those types of environments, methamphetamine or different drugs that enable, heightened sexual prowess are very popular, right? Combine that with other narcotics, who knows? But yeah, I don't know exactly what's going on. Obviously, I only know what other researchers are saying. I'm not exactly an investigator myself. I'm just a news aggregator, but that's the news that's been aggregated, right? Galloway said this, George Galloway, what a remarkable coincidence that Mr. and Mrs. Howard Lucknick both missed work on 9/11, seeing as they both occupied several floors of the Twin Towers. Of course, you've seen the video of him crying here.
Like 700 families. 700 families. How do you have 700 families? I can't say it. I can't say it without crying.
I just say for the record, he says he's crying, but there's not really any evidence of tears, right? He's wiping away like a dry face, right? So I don't see any particular tears there or any real, maybe I'm wrong, okay? But what I'm saying is it doesn't look like there's any tears to me.
I can't say it.
Does it look like there's tears to you?